First principles thinking has led to some brilliant results, be it Elon Musk building his billion-dollar companies SpaceX and Tesla.
I think it's also important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy.
Be it Olympians breaking world records or people using it in their day-to-day lives, building good habits and breaking bad ones. In this video, we're gonna understand what is first principles thinking, how you can do it, and we're gonna go through some examples on how people have achieved great things using this approach. Hi, I'm Suhail. I'm new to YouTube and I make videos about things that I find interesting. And one of the things that I find interesting and apply in my day-to-day life is first principles thinking. And I'll also discuss in this video how I use first principles to come at a decision. What is first principle thinking? Wikipedia defines it as a basic proposition or assumption that cannot be deduced from any other proposition or assumption. What it basically is it's a type of problem solving where you break down a complex idea or a problem into its most fundamental components and use that information to build a solution from scratch. And these fundamental components that you build using scratch are irrefutable and universally true. So let's look at the example of Elon Musk and SpaceX. So the rockets used by NASA were not meant to be reused. So once the rocket takes the astronauts into space, the shuttle is thrown into the Atlantic Ocean. So this approach was challenged by SpaceX, where they built reusable rockets which brought down the cost by a lot, and this has made space travel much cheap and delivering payload to space also much cheaper. NASA is an organization which has a very good history of space travel, and challenging one of the ways how they did things is very difficult, and just assuming that this is the way it's been done by one of the historic companies and not thinking about how this can be improved, this was arrived through thinking by first principles. And in another company where Elon uses first principles thinking is the manufacturing of batteries for his company Tesla. So what he says was, historically it cost up to $600 per kilowatt to produce a battery, and it's not going to be much cheaper than that. That's what everybody says. So the first principle way of thinking would be, what are the material constituents of a battery? What is the spot value of the material constituents? It's got cobalt, nickel, aluminium, carbon, and some other polymers for separation, and a steel can. If you break down to these basic materials and we check the cost of these materials in the stock exchange, it would be around $80 per kilowatt hour. And what Elon proposed is basically we can surely find a cleverer way to take these materials and combine into a shape of a battery and bring the cost much lower than $600. Another region where first principle was applied was in sports, specifically in high jump. Every sport has a set of rules that need to be followed, and Dick Fosbury changed high jump forever. So historically how high jump was done was people run to the post and they jump with all their body on top of the pole, trying to clear the pole with their legs in front of them. What Dick Fosbury did was truly revolutionary. He maintained his center of mass below the pole at all time and achieved much higher jumps, and this has become the normal ways that high jumpers do it today. You might find it surprising if somebody does it in some other way today. So one of the ways I used first principle in my life is to make the decision of whether to move and where to move. Moving homes is not an easy task, and to make the decision is difficult. There are things which are non-negotiable. We needed a maid room for our maid, and we needed a study room because we work at home many times. So these were non-negotiable. Now while deciding, like some apartments are very expensive, some were cheaper, but some were closer to office, some were far from office. To make the decision in the right way, we decided on what's the cost of the apartment, and also take into account how much travel time it takes, how much money we spend on travel. So all these variables were put into a list to make the decision in a right way, budgeting properly, looking at our incomes, our expenses, so the time saved can have a more return on investment than the money we spend on the apartment. So kids think intuitively in first principles. So you might have seen a kid ask you questions repeatedly. Why? For example, you should brush your teeth and go to sleep early. Why? Because if you don't sleep early, you'll not get enough sleep. Why? If you don't get enough sleep, you'll not be well rested. Why? Sleep is necessary. Without sleep, you would die. The way these kids question, they want to get to the first principles. They never want to hear the statement because I say so. They want to know the empirical reason of why something is done because they are naturally curious. Another way you can use first principles is when you say I don't have time for X, or I don't have time for working out, I don't have time for reading. You can break down your day into hours, like every hour what is being done, what's taking up your time. For example, like we need 8 hours of sleep. Okay, now we are left with 16 hours. So of the 16 hours, we have 8 hours work. Okay, 8 hours is left. So what do I do in this 8 hours? Maybe there's some commute. We can save up on commute, or there's some other thing that we do which distracts us, or we spend more than enough time on social media. All these things can be put down in a list, and things can be striked out based on the priority. So if your priority is to work out and get fit, so you need to put that higher at something, and something has to go out of your list. Or maybe there is something that you don't even realize you're spending time on, and you can save that and put that into the gym. So thinking from first principles allows you to step out of your normal conventional way of thinking. That is basically, I'm doing this because this is how it's always being done. This is how others do it. That's why I'm doing it. Rather than thinking about why, like from the base hard truths, telling yourself that this is how I am and this is how I always be, is selling yourself short. And understand it from first principles, why it is so and how you can improve or change it. A like to the video and subscribe to the channel would be very helpful. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.